Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show which discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Hosted today by Nadia Jordana, and here's Nadia.
Hello and welcome to It's a Woman's World. I'm Nadia Jordana. Co-hosting with me today is Lynn Garthwaite. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you.
And our guest, Amy Zellmer. Welcome to you too, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Ann Aubitz and her daughter, Katlyn. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Now, we're going to start off by talking to Ann and Katlyn about your story. We're going to hear a little bit. Why don't we start out by hearing about Down syndrome? Katlyn has Down syndrome.
Yes.
Explain a little bit to us, and then we'll talk about some of the interesting things that Katlyn has been doing.
All right. Well, Katlyn was born with Down syndrome. It is something that never goes away. There's no cure for Down syndrome. So it really is a big thing in the United States. Katlyn is cognitively impaired, but she is able to do so many things, and that's what we want to talk about is what she is capable of doing and all the things she loves to do. And so she was able to write this book with me and she just does a myriad of different activities throughout the week, and she loves, her dream was to be on TV, so she's achieved her dream.
You sure have. And you're also involved with, am I correct in this, the Special Olympics?
Yes.
Did you do that just recently? Did you do the polar plunge?
Yes.
I'll bet that was fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
How many times have you done the polar plunge?
2.
2, and she is going for a 3rd time this winter.
Oh, it hasn't happened this year yet.
It hasn't. It'll be at the end of February.
And Katlyn, I understand you were a cheerleader, is that right? Are you still doing cheerleading?
Yes.
Nice. And dancing?
Yes, everything is done now, so yeah.
Cheerleading just ended. What are you doing now? What do you do now? Swimming?
Yep, swimming.
With Special Olympics. Yeah. And then we do, what else do you do with Special Olympics?
Bungee.
Bocce and bowling. So
Bocce, is that the game bocce ball?
Yeah, bocce ball.
Okay. Yeah,
it is a lot of fun. It's a newer sport. We've only had it in our delegation for 3 years. And the first year she got gold, and she'd never played before.
Oh, wonderful.
So she absolutely loves it. Swimming has been one of her favorite things always. She started when she was 7. And that Special Olympics is a great organization for the kids and adults to find out what they can do, what they're capable of. It's a great thing to be social. The events, the area meet and the state meet are so much fun. They have dances and big dinners for them and award ceremonies. So it's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite? No?
No.
Swimming?
Yeah, swimming.
And Katlyn has transitioned into the adult competition, correct? She's 19, is that?
She's 20 now.
20 now,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And so they are, instead of going by age, they go by ability.
Okay.
So there can be, I remember her the first time she swam, she was just a little peanut. She was 7 or 8 years old. And she goes to state, and there were men swimming next to her in the next lane. So it really it depends on ability.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's a really fun way for them to have the competition. It's still extremely competitive, but she loves it, and she loves winning the medals. It's all about the hardware.
Of course.
Bling.
Oh,
All about the bling.
The bling.
I know Katlyn likes her bling.
Yes. And so she will win the medals, and then she gives them to me and puts them around my neck, and I can carry them for her
Very nice.
throughout the day.
And you graduated from high school, I believe. Is that correct, Katlyn?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been through the whole high school thing, and was it regular classes? What school did you go to?
Bolton, Thomas Jefferson High School.
Thomas Jefferson High School in Bloomington. And you graduated from high school. What year did you graduate?
2014.
2014. So now she goes to a transition program, and she'll be in that for 3 years. She's very fortunate. A lot of kids are only in it for 2. But there's a lot of things that they do. They learn living skills. They go grocery shopping. They do cooking. So they'll cook for the week. She had a wonderful opportunity with Goodwill, and she's now working at a retail training program at Macy's Mall of America for 8 weeks. And she absolutely loves it. So they're able to learn every component of retail. She knows how to, well, obviously folding clothes.
Sure.
But more than that, merchandising, putting outfits together, learning the cash register, which is something, you know, a challenge, but something that's really a great skill to have.
It is a good skill.
Yeah, and then learning how to speak to customers. So not saying when they come up to her and ask her where something is, saying, I don't know. Being able to try to help them, show them where things are, or get help if she can't do it. So it's been a wonderful experience so far. What's your favorite part? You don't know? You usually
Oh
say
yeah, my favorite I did get a check.
she got a check. Her first.
Yeah, I think
That's my favorite part.
I think so. I think
She
so.
got her first paycheck, and the look on her face when she accomplished that, it was just amazing. I wish I would have taken a photo.
Yeah.
But it was just, it was like, this is all mine. And she worked for it, and it was such a great experience.
Well, that is a big deal. And Katlyn, you've been doing some videos on YouTube also, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of your videos. They were very fun and interesting.
We did video blogs associated with the book and the chapters, and talking about, she just talks about each chapter and how she perceived it in that time. And we did one with the dog and the cat, so that was a funny one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
To me, that was the most fun of the book was Katlyn's version of events. You know, you'd have your story, you'd talk about something, we'd get Katlyn's version, and then of course most helpful was the resources that you offered to readers for other families to use, so they maybe could skirt some of the hurdles that you had to jump through when you were raising her.
And that was the thing, is there's no handbook to having a child with Down syndrome. It's finding things out through other parents and friends, and that's really where we've learned everything. It wasn't from a book. It wasn't from any specific organization, although there are wonderful organizations in the state of Minnesota, and we are lucky to be here in this state. I met a woman through Etsy that bought the book. She's from Florida, and she loved the fact that I listed everything that we have in Minnesota because they don't have any programs. Her child was born 2 years ago with Down syndrome, and she said they don't have so many of the things that I mentioned in the book. So now it's a great opportunity for her to advocate for them in her own state, and she's very excited about that.
When she can get specific with programs, it probably helps her cause rather than just kind of random help with something.
Exactly. So she's working right now to get a Gigi's Playhouse in Naples. We've had one here for about 4 years, and it specifically helps individuals with Down syndrome, children all the way up to, now they're talking about doing a Gigi's University. So it'd be for young adults, Katlyn's age and older, up to about 25. So it's a great program. There are a lot of different things there that they can do, like tutoring, and then of course fun stuff, so dances and socials. That's really where they thrive.
You've got to have the fun stuff with the educational stuff.
Yeah, and it's great to have them be so social.
Yeah.
Every day would be a party and a dance if it were up to Katlyn,
Exactly.
right? We'd dance every day.
And now you're
get dressed
cooking.
up.
You mentioned cooking. What kind of things do you cook?
We cook soup,
Nice.
homemade soup.
Okay.
Homemade soup. Should we invite them over?
Yeah.
Let's have a party.
Good.
So what do you put in your soup?
Chicken, noodles, rice, mushrooms, carrots, and celery.
Wonderful.
Yum.
And she takes cooking classes a couple times a month. She's really getting good with a knife and learning what to put in the soup and different things like that. So it's been really beneficial to have her at these classes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they decorated Christmas cookies for Christmas. They're doing Valentine's cupcakes this week. They did Super Bowl munchies.
I did miss that.
Yeah, you missed that. But, you know, that's one of the things that are offered. They make them really fun for the kids. Young adults, I should say.
Well, tell us a little bit about the book the two of you wrote together. How did that start? What brought it about? And how did that process go?
So when I started it about 3 years ago, and I really wanted it to be a resource for parents, especially going through the guardianship process, which if you have a child with special needs, you'd need to do that. You have to go through and get guardianship, sometimes conservatorship, depending. And it just was a really tough time for me. My friends were like, oh, it's no big deal, but you go to court. So for me, it is a big deal.
Court is intimidating.
Right. It's she had a lawyer. She was sitting on one side of the room. We had a lawyer. We were sitting on the other. It was a big deal.
Even though you're the same family.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it was. I had to, really research it, and we talked to a lawyer, and we went through the whole process. But for me, it wasn't just, it's not a big deal. It was a big deal. So I started writing down stories and resources, and never in a million years thought she'd be interested in doing anything like this. She thought it would be boring, writing. She loves it. She thought of so many stories and times that I had forgotten. But she saw the photo or the illustration that our illustrator did. And she said, oh, that's me. And so she was so excited about that and about being a part of this. And then we started talking about doing the video blogs and doing a blog and doing other things, and she's loved every minute of it. We did 2 book launches, and she spoke at both, and she was 19 at the time, but she got up at Gigi's Playhouse and spoke in front of probably 70 people at 19.
Right.
I couldn't have done that.
Exactly.
Oh, I couldn't have at 19 either, so
No.
you're way ahead of me, Katlyn.
She got up on the stage and she did a little dance and she posed for photos and she just had a great time.
And signed every book.
And signed every book.
Signing books. I'll bet signing books is fun.
Yeah.
She had her hot pink Sharpie.
We lost it.
We lost it, but
Oh no.
yeah,
To get another one.
We did.
Amy gave her a new one today.
Yes.
So
Good timing.
it was perfect timing.
So Katlyn, and you're working at Macy's and you're folding clothes. I read your book, so I know that you hid all your clothes in the closet instead of folding them. Do you do that at Macy's too?
No.
One of the stories in the book is she actually went to clean her room. Our nanny at the time said, you need to go clean your room, sent her in her room. And Katlyn came back out 5 minutes later and said, I'm all done. And Julie said, well, how could you be all done? You just started. And the room was a mess. And Julie walked in there and said, oh, it's beautiful. Where did you put all the clothes? And Katlyn said, out the window.
Oh, goodness.
She had thrown all her clothes out the window for all of Portland Avenue to see.
Well, that was creative.
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
That was
Creative
very
cleaning.
creative.
And her room was clean.
Exactly.
She did
That
what
was
she
the
was
goal.
supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Well, Katlyn, you are such an inspiration, and Ann, you are too. We're going to change gears a little bit now and talk with Amy and hear a little bit about Amy's story. You have a story too about traumatic brain injury. Talk to us about, let's start with the accident that happened in 2014.
Yes, it was actually just a few days ago. It was my 2-year anniversary. But I was walking, we have like an incline driveway, and I was walking down the driveway. I had my winter boots on, and I hit a patch of just sheer ice, and I had no reaction time.
You just don't know when that's going to happen.
Nope, my feet went up in the air, and I landed on my head and suffered a traumatic brain
So
injury.
you fell backwards and hit your head on, was it on the ice or concrete? I guess it doesn't
Concrete,
matter.
yeah, frozen concrete.
Yeah, it was the
Did you know
same.
immediately that
Oh,
it was
yeah.
a massive problem?
I remember hearing it. I remember hearing the sound of my head hitting the cement and just going, oh, this isn't good. And as soon as I got up, I had shooting pain in my head. My vision was really weird. So I knew right away I wasn't okay.
Was anyone with you?
No, my dog, my Yorkie.
How did you get some help then? What did you do?
Well, I first called my neighbor, and she came over and sat with me for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and had me put some ice on my head, and she asked me some questions, and she asked me, who's the president, and I said Bill Clinton, and I knew that was wrong, but it just came out of my mouth. It was so weird, and I was like, oh, that was weird. And then I did go to the doctor after that.
Did they diagnose it immediately?
Yep, the original diagnosis was severe concussion, but concussions and traumatic brain injury are kind of interchangeable.
I was going to say, aren't they kind of the same thing?
Yep, and that's a big misconception out there. People, when they hear the term traumatic brain injury, they think of like the worst case scenario, the person that's in a coma or that's bedridden or in a wheelchair the rest of their life. But a concussion is also a traumatic brain injury. It's just a milder version, but it doesn't mean the symptoms are any less severe.
And in fact, there's a big grade of concussions from mild to severe.
And that's a medical term. The mild, moderate, and severe is a medical term, and that is used to diagnose loss of consciousness. So in my case, it was brief. I was out. I was alone, so I don't know for sure.
So you did believe you lost.
At least for a minute or so, because my dog had walked away from me. So the medical terminology for mild, moderate, severe is less than a half hour of consciousness, and then I think it's a half hour to an hour, and then more than an hour is the severe. I might have those numbers wrong, but it's similar to that.
And when did you start your book? Was that part of your recovery process? Actually, you started with the Huffington Post prior to that. Is that correct?
Yes. So at about my 1 year, I wrote a personal blog talking about my journey. And a friend encouraged me to submit it to the Huffington Post. And I kind of like balked at the idea, but I'm like, oh, what the heck?
That's scary.
Try it.
Worst they'll do is say no. So I submitted it, and they approved it and accepted it. And it kind of went super viral. It was kind of cool to watch it circulating Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And so that got me thinking, okay, there's a really big need for more information.
It's a hot topic right now.
It is. And there's, every 13 seconds, someone in the U.S. suffers a TBI.
Wow.
So, every year there's like 2.5 million TBIs, and those are just reported.
Right.
So there's tons of us walking around out there, and we all feel very isolated and alone because it's so invisible. And unless you've experienced it, you just can't understand what it's like. I say, imagine the worst hangover you've ever had in your life, but it never goes away. That's kind of what it feels like inside your head.
What is the ongoing treatment then after the initial diagnosis?
Well, there was I had an MRI, no brain bleed, but that doesn't mean that there's not minor tearing. And now at my 2-year point, we finally are getting me into vision therapy. So we hope the vision therapy helps.
What do they do with vision therapy? What are some of the things that they do?
It's a lot of exercises with the eyes, with body coordination. Like for instance, when I read, my eyes aren't smooth. It's more like a typewriter. It reads the line and then goes back, and then reads the line and then goes back. And your eyes should be much more fluid when you read. So it's just retraining the brain how to work with the eyes.
Are there any medications that can be prescribed, or usually not? I can't think of any.
Not for like my symptoms. There's really nothing. Some people with more severe headaches, they might try Botox or migraine medications. But as far as like memory loss and the visual stuff, there's really nothing pharmaceutically that you can do.
How about chiropractic care?
Yes, that has been my biggest. My biggest treatment has been chiropractic, and then cranial sacral therapy.
And what is that?
Cranial sacral therapy is sort of like chiropractic on the skull, except it's extremely gentle. They barely put any pressure on your skull, and it's just about realigning those skull plates to relieve the pressure.
And can that be a permanent cure then, or is this something you have to keep going back?
It's ongoing. I originally was going twice a week, then once a week, then every other, and now I'm going like once a month, every other month for maintenance.
Well, what are some of the challenges that you face? Are there lingering symptoms? What is your day-to-day life like as you gradually move towards, will there be a full recovery? I guess that's a couple of questions in there.
Yeah, and the answer to that is they don't know.
Okay.
There's really no two brain injuries are the same, no two recoveries are the same. It's a really big mystery of the brain because they can't see it. Or like a broken arm, they can see it, they can fix it. And you know, with me, I also had whiplash and torn muscles and a dislocated sternum. So they really focused on treating those initially.
Sure.
And then it really became apparent after about 8 weeks that this wasn't getting better. I've developed a lot of coping skills. For instance, my short-term memory is terrible. I can literally open Google and forget what I was going to Google. I mean, it's just that fast. So I've got lots of Post-it notes all over. Like, if I think of something to Google, I write it down before I forget, then open Google.
Wow.
So I've learned a lot of coping skills with Post-it notes. My email was a really big challenge.
In what way?
I would read the email. In my head, I responded to it,
Okay.
but then I never actually typed it out and sent it.
Right.
So I've had to learn at the end of each day, I go through my emails and make sure they've all been replied to.
And look and see if you have that sent message
Yes.
in there. So at least you have a checks and balances process going on there until it becomes second nature for you.
Yeah.
Have you noticed some improvement just in those though?
Yes.
Okay, so there is a little.
There's definitely,
measurable.
in the last 6 months, I've seen improvement.
Good.
But up until that point, there wasn't much improvement. So it's promising once you do start to see improvement.
So once it starts getting better, you feel like you can really see progress and it's building on itself.
What can friends and family do to help somebody that has a TBI or a concussion?
That's a great question. The first thing I want people to really understand is it's not just a concussion. I want to get that word kind of just kicked to the curb because concussions are serious. They are a brain injury. So that's the first thing, being aware that this is a brain injury, it's serious. If you're there when something happens, like if your child's playing sports, if they kind of are staggering or they can't remember things to tell you, like if you ask them a question, make sure you take them to the emergency room right away. But as far as helping someone cope with it, remembering that they're in this for the long haul, it's not going to be better in a couple weeks.
Right.
You can't just put a cast on it or a Band-Aid. So checking in with them every few weeks or every few months. Offering to take them places. I probably shouldn't have been driving. I had no choice, and I was so dazed and confused, I probably didn't even.
That day you were injured, probably not.
I should not have driven,
Yeah.
no. So, offering to take them to the doctor, offering to be an advocate. I had no one to go with me to doctor's appointments. And so there's lots of things I'd get home and wouldn't remember.
And you wouldn't know what questions to even ask, probably.
Exactly. And if I'd have had someone to go to the doctor with me who could say, yeah, she's been doing this or she's been acting like that, I think that would have really helped that communication between me and the doctor.
Or even take notes for you so you can look at them later.
Exactly.
Talk about your book. How did you, now you started with the Huffington Post article and it led to this.
So, like I said, about 1 year after my injury, I wrote that post and it went on Huffington Post. And then I started writing more and more articles. My second most viral one was called 5 Things Every TBI Survivor Wants You to Understand. That one went super viral. And then I joined a women's writing group that many of you are part of. And they encouraged me, well, you already have like 12 blog posts written. We could turn this into a book. And it was like, it was that aha moment.
That would be the aha moment.
And so, I had a really great editor, and she was able to make it flow
into a book, because there was a lot of repetition because I would repeat my story in each blog post. So she really did a great job of making it flow together.
And you brought in other stories, didn't you? Other people
Yes,
in similar
yep.
situations.
There are several. I have quotes in the book from other survivors who've given their insight, and then I have a couple stories on other survivors. So it's a lot about me and my journey, but it's also other survivors and how a caregiver or a loved one can help support someone they know.
What are some of the biggest takeaways from this experience in a positive sense? There must have been some.
Yes.
The book is one.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me, I think, was learning compassion. I mean, I feel like I was always compassionate, but I'm way more compassionate when I see someone in the grocery store and maybe they're just standing there kind of staring blankly at the shelf. And, previously I might have gotten, like I'm in a hurry, I want to get around them. And now it's like, oh, they're probably dealing with something, no matter what it is. Right. Everybody's going through something. And whatever they're going through is the biggest thing to them because it's impacting their life.
And as long as it's impacting their life, yeah. So that gives you maybe a little bit more of a sensitivity to what someone else might be going through. Are you going to be doing any speaking engagements coming up soon?
Yeah, I've been going to a lot of Rotary groups and talking about traumatic brain injury, sharing my story and sharing how they can help others, and just really bringing an awareness to what traumatic brain injury and concussions really are. I'm speaking at the Minneapolis Women's Club, and I'm also heading to Washington, D.C. for Brain Injury Awareness Month.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to be going out there and speaking to
What
some
month
support
is
groups.
that?
That's in March.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll be speaking to support groups and rehab centers.
I mentioned there'll be a huge contingency of sports-related speakers and things too. Because we are at least finally becoming aware of it in the sports world.
Especially with the movie Concussion just came out this past December.
Right.
Good timing.
Overall.
Good timing.
Sports and military.
Oh, sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have less than a minute left, I believe. Any words of wisdom from the two of you, the three of you, before we say goodbye?
I guess just don't be afraid to share your story. I was afraid to share mine. I was afraid of what people would think. And once I did, it just turned into this amazing opportunity.
And aren't you having fun sharing your story too?
We are, and our message is that there are limitless possibilities for them, and they can do whatever they want. So try things.
That's wonderful. They really are. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching It's a Woman's World. We'll see you next time.